California. Traffic, Nevada. As you can see, I'm going to be staying in Excalibur. It was the cheapest hotel I could find with a poker room, so if I just want to play poker, I pretty much never have to leave this building. And it is on the Strip, so it's pretty close by other poker rooms and areas that I might want to go to, so pretty good deal overall. Let's take a look at the room. So that's the bathroom, not much to say there. This is where the magic will not be happening. Currently 5:35. I'm gonna relax a bit and wash up because I feel kind of gross after driving for about 4 hours. Probably should get some food after that, but I came here to play poker and can't really wait to do that. So I'm gonna go down to the casino downstairs. They have a poker room, pretty good buy-in structure, I believe. It's 1-2 with a $200 buy-in, which you don't see very much where I'm from. Pretty tired right now, but still in the mood to play poker, so let's do it before it gets too late. We just started a new table and I look down at pocket kings. I am in under the gun +1. I raise it up to 10 and the player in the button, who also won for 300 and looks like a pretty good player, makes a call. The flop comes queen, queen, 9, 2 spades. I put out a c-bet here of $10 and the button calls. So still heads up to a turn, which comes the 4 of spades. I do have the king of spades, which blocks a lot of spade draws. And of course, that gives me equity in case I am beat at this point. I decide to bet around half pot and put out a bet of $20. The button makes the call again. So we are headed to a river card, which is the 10 of clubs. This time I decide to check it over to the button. I don't think betting here accomplishes much. He's going to pretty much fold everything worse or raise and put me in a tough spot. So I decide to go into check call mode and check it over to him. And he checks back. I show my hand and it ends up being good. In this next hand, I am in the big blind with Jack 8 of hearts. The cutoff, who is a young player who seems to know what he's doing, raises it up to 7. The button call, the small blind calls, and I decide I have a decent amount of equity and I'm getting a great price, so I make the call. I don't remember the stack sizes for the button and the small blind, but I believe the cutoff won a big hand earlier and had me covered. And I probably had anywhere from $250 to $300 at this point effective. So we are headed 4 ways to a flop, which comes deuce 8 jack, 2 diamonds. So we flop top 2 pair here. The small blind checks it over to me and I decide I'm gonna lead out here instead of checking it over to the cutoff who raised pre-flop. The reason is because even though I probably always have a made hand when I lead out of position in this situation, I still can get called by so many hands, like diamond draws, 9-10, 2 overcards with flush draw might even raise. Other players could also have top pairs as well, like queen jack or ace jack. So I decide to put out a bet of $15. The cutoff makes the call and the other players fold. So we are heads up to a turn. The turn brings an offsuit 9. I decide to continue here for value and bet out 30. And the cutoff makes the call once again. The river is the ace of hearts, so the flush draw misses. And this time I actually decide to check it over to the cutoff to induce. When he calls me on the flop on the turn, I'm putting him on perhaps ace jack, which is now beating me. Flush draws, maybe straight draws like 9-10, could easily have something like queen 10 suited. So there are a decent amount of hands that are now beating mine. Don't want to put myself in a situation where I get raised and have to make a tough decision. So I check it over to him again, hoping that flush draws and any other draws he could have will decide to bluff here. And he quickly checks back. So probably always good here. I show my hand and it is good. In this next hand, I am in the hijack with queen 10 of hearts. I raise it up to 10 and the cutoff calls. So we are heads up to a flop, which comes queen 8 jack rainbow. So we have top pair and a gut shot to go along with it. I decide to bet here and put out a bet of 15 and the cutoff makes the call. The turn is a pretty interesting card. It is a 10, so we now have 2 pair, but there's 4 to a straight on the board. And this time I decide to check to try to get to showdown. I think most of the hands worse than mine are going to fold, and all hands better than mine are going to call a bet or even raise. My opponent only has about $50-something behind, so just about a pot-sized bet. So that also factors into my decision. If I bet here, pretty much going to have to be a shove, and because of that, he's probably not going to make too many mistakes here. So I decide to check it over to the cutoff, and he checks back. The river is the 9 of hearts, so there's now a straight on the board. So my hand gets counterfeited and I'm playing the board. As said before, my opponent only has about a pot-sized bet left, and I think I have more kings in my range than he does, and of course I could have ace-king for the nut straight. So I actually decide to put him all in. And strangely, he very quickly decides to fold. He didn't even think about it for too long. I actually ended up pushing him off of the chop. Not sure why he folded so quickly there, but always happy to win when I know we're both playing the board.
Yeah. I didn't think you had.
No,
In the next hand, I am on the button with Ace King. Low Jack raises it to 12. I put out a 3-bet to $40. Small blind, who is the player from the last hand, insta calls, and he only had around $30 to $35 left, so he's all in. Everyone folds. He shows Ace 6 of clubs, so we are in pretty good shape until we see the flop, which comes 6 deuce 10 2 hearts. I do have the Ace of Hearts though, so there is hope. The turn brings the 10 of Hearts, giving me a draw to the nut flush, and then the river comes the Jack of Hearts. So he outflopped us after being dominated, and then we came back when the river brought 4 to a flush. So ended up working out the way it was supposed to after all.
Why do you have to scare me like that?
In this next hand, I am in under the gun +2 with Ace Queen. I raise it up to 10, and the player in the button, who seemed like a good player and was the guy I played in the very first hand, 3 bets to $35. He seemed very, very tight, so putting him on a pretty strong hand here. I think against this particular player in this situation, I could pretty easily find a fold since my hand does have a lot of reverse implied odds. You'd have aces, ace king, things like that. So kind of worried here, but I decide to make the call. So we're heads up to a flop, which comes ace 8 7 2 hearts. I check it over to the button, and he puts out a pretty big bet of $60. He has about $200 behind, so if I decide to call here, he's gonna have just about a pot size bet left, and I think I'm going to face a shove on the turn a decent amount of the time. As I mentioned earlier, there are a lot of reverse implied odds with hands like ace queen in particular when you're up against like ace king or aces, but I didn't call a 3-bet with ace queen to fold on this board, so I go ahead and make the call. The turn brings a pretty great card. It's queen of spades, so we are now beating ace king. I check it over to the button again, and this time he actually checks back and seems like he doesn't like that card too much. The river brings a 5 of hearts, completing the flush draw. This player could have definitely had heart draws on the flop, which I didn't think about too much during the time because he had been so tight that I was just thinking he had ace king, kings, or aces. Kind of on the fence as to whether I should bet here for value or whether I should check it over to him and hope that he bets and just go into check call mode. Ultimately, I actually decide to go for a very small bet. The pot's around 190 to 200, something like that, and he has 200 behind. So I actually put out a tiny bet of $60, and the reason for this is because if he does have a flush and he raises, then I think I can find folds, and if he does have just a pair of aces, then he's going to be scared of the flush as well. So I am getting value from worse hands while not risking too much, and at the same time not letting my opponent dictate how much I need to pay to get to showdown, unless of course he raises, in which case, as I mentioned earlier, I can find a fold there. So that's why I decided to go for the small sizing, and the good news is my opponent does not snap and looks pretty frustrated, seems to know he's beat, but eventually he thinks about it for a while and makes the call. I show my ace queen, and my opponent starts nodding, and seems like he knew exactly what I had. He mucked his hand, and I asked him if he had ace king, and he said yeah, so pretty unfortunate on his side, but great for us. Also, let me know what you think of the small bet on the river. Kind of curious about what people think of that play. In this next hand, I am in the big blind with king queen offsuit. The low jack raises it up to 11, and given that I am out of position, I decide to 3-bet this hand and make it 35, and the low jack calls. So we're heads up to a flop, which comes king 3-6 2 spades. He had around 250 or so. I put out a small c-bet here of $35, and the low jack very quickly raises me to 100. And in my experience, when people have snapped raise like this, a lot of the time it has been as a bluff. You can't see too many hands he would just raise here out of nowhere. Pocket 3s, pocket 6s, and that's pretty much it. Obviously not going to fold. If I just call, the pot is going to be 270 and he'll have 150 behind, give or take. So don't want to put myself in that situation, and I decided to just rip it in there. I have him covered, and I 3-bet shove for what is effectively 249. Again, good news, my opponent does not snap, and looks like he knows he's beat, but makes the call anyways. Seems like he's just calling because he feels like he's priced in. The turn brings the deuce of clubs, and the river brings the 3 of hearts. He shows us ace queen of spades for a missed nut flush draw, so we end up taking this one down as well. Currently heading back to my room. I'm actually still at the table. My phone ran out of battery from filming so long. Just gonna get my charger. Session going well so far. Currently up $295 plus one for the collection. Next hand, I have ace 4 of diamonds in under the gun +2. The under the gun player limps. I raise it up to 10 and get called by the low jack and the under the gun player. 3 ways to a flop, which comes king 8-6, 2 diamonds. The under the gun player checks it over to me, and although I would bet most of my diamond draws here, I actually decide to check as well because of stack sizes. The under the gun player has $75 behind, and the low jack has even less, probably something around 50 to 60. Pot is already 30 something dollars, so if I do bet here and get called by one or both of the players, we're going to be in a very low SPR situation, and I'm probably not going to be able to bluff them off if I end up missing. So I decided to check as well, and the low jack quickly checks as well. So still 3 ways to a turn card, which comes a complete blank. I decide I'm going to take a stab at it now and put out a bet of $15. And unfortunately, both of the players call. So praying to the poker gods for a diamond to come on the river brings a 4. So we kind of got some help. The under the gun player checks again, and I decide I'm just going to give up here and take my showdown value for whatever it's worth. The low jack turns over his hand and shows ace queen of hearts. So we were beating ace high, and now we're waiting for the under the gun player to show. He sees the other player's hand and mucks his hand. So we show our ace 4 and end up taking down the pot. Me and the low jack have a good laugh. He was a pretty good sport about it. So just keep running super well in this session. This next hand's kind of interesting. Not too proud of this, but I'm in the cutoff with Jack 10 offsuit. There are 2 limps, and I decide I'm going to raise it up here. I know it's a bit loose, but I raise it up to 10. The button calls, and both of the limpers call. Flop comes 5-5-4, 2 clubs, so pretty dry board. Action checks to me, and I decide I'm going to take a stab here, knowing fully well that I rarely ever hit this board. I'm just hoping that none of the other players hit as well and aren't going to be able to call multiple streets, so they'll decide to fold the flop. So I put out a bet of 20, and the low jack ends up making the call. The turn is the 9 of hearts, and this player has about $100 left behind. I just decide to go for it here. I don't think he has too much. Feels like he has maybe 6-7, something like a stubborn underpair or 2 overcards that just don't want to fold yet. So I decide to keep firing here, hoping that my opponent will think I have an overpair or something of that sort. And as I start reaching for chips, this player starts doing a little speech play saying, "Oh, you have one of those 5s too," or something like that. He only has about $100 behind. I decide to just try to bet 45 just to see what happens. And he thinks about it for quite some time, seems to be debating it in his head, and ends up making the call. So planning on giving up here if I don't hit on the river. The river brings the ace of clubs, completing the flush draw and putting an ace on the board. He checks his cards real quick and then checks it over to me. I do not have a club in my hand, and I feel like he might have been chasing a flush, as a lot of these lower stakes players do, even without appropriate stack sizes. So I decide to just give up here and check back, and he turns over pocket 7s with the 7 of clubs. So ended up calling us down to the river. I realize now that I could have gotten him to fold, but unfortunately didn't do it this time. Not super proud of this hand. Definitely could have played it a lot better. Playing it better would have been not playing it at all. One last hand to go through before ending off the vlog. After running pretty well for almost all of the session, I became pretty card dead and just kept folding and folding. An early position player who is the same guy who caught my bluff with the pocket 7s. He had been drinking very, very much, had probably like 5 Coronas ever since he sat down. Early on, he didn't start going crazy or anything, but then after a while, he started getting very spewy. Saw him raise to 12 with 6 deuce and then show it down on the river as a bluff. Saw him call a $20 raise with 7-5 offsuit at 1-2. I was about to leave since I was getting tired and wasn't really getting any cards, but then I saw that he started loosening up, so I thought it'd be wise to stay for a while. So this player decides to straddle from under the gun. Under the gun +2 makes the call, and I'm in the low jack and look down at pocket kings. I raise it up to 18, and both players make the call. So we're 3 ways to a flop, which comes 5 queen 6, 2 diamonds, so pretty safe. I do also have the king of diamonds in my hand. Both players check it over to me. I put out a bet of 35, and the under the gun player shoves for like 250 plus, something like that. The other player folds, and I snap call, of course. For the turn river come, he shows queen 9 offsuit with the 9 of diamonds. So we're in pretty good shape here. Really, really want to stack this player since he did catch my bluff earlier. So my heart's pounding even though my hand's good. I'm just praying that a queen or a 9 doesn't come. The turn brings an offsuit 8 and the river brings a king. So our kings hold, we take down the pot, and just like that, we earn an extra $250 plus. Pretty soon after that hand, I decide to cash out. Ended up being a pretty awesome night so far. Couldn't have asked for a better session. Hey, how's it going?
No, they're all about yourself.
Hey, what game was you on?
Poker. Play? No?
1,169 and 69. Alright, let's start counting right here. 7, 8, 9, and 10. That's 1,000, 1,100, 20, 40, 60, 65, 66, 67, 68.
Thank you very much.
Alright, you're all set.
Have a nice day. In for 300, out for 1169. Finished up at 11:21, which means I played for 4 hours and 40 minutes. That means an hourly rate of $186.43. It's currently 11:38 p.m. I've had one meal today, and that was before I left for Vegas. Sometimes you're playing poker for a while and you just forget to eat. Looks like Baja Fresh inside of this building is open, so probably gonna go there, try to get something light. It is pretty late. I should probably get going to bed because tomorrow is another day, and I want to be well rested for the next session. So I will see you in the next poker vlog. Until then, thanks for watching. Thanks for the support. I really appreciate how all of you come through and give me advice on hands when I ask for it. So thanks for that. Thanks to those of you who understood, you know, me being busy with school and stuff, and told me to just focus on that and not worry too much about the poker vlogs, as school does come first. I'll see you in the next poker vlog. Good night.